All right. Hello, everybody. We are on day 10. We are back for Vlogmas here. Thank you so much for joining me. Feeling very, chipper. I had a Coke very recently, feeling pretty good. Just enjoy being able to come on here and just share about my day. I had a lot of really interesting, just moments of the day, which I really appreciated. I really enjoyed that. My One of the things I want to talk about today is definitely a little. Obviously, I speak about it a lot, but just like my family, we've been connecting a little bit more. And my mom actually just sent a picture of my grandfather when he had his first kid. He was 25, and he looks so young and just so. I gotta see if it would work on here for you guys to see it as well. It's like such an old school picture of him. Let's see. Let's see if you guys can see it. Can you guys see that? Yes, look at this man. Look how handsome he was. Look how happy he was, right? So the hype of having his first kid, but just being able to see that, and he was just like so young at that point, and just like wide-eyed and just really happy and grateful. It was really cool to be able to like have that conversation with my mom and just like what that was like. And then also she was telling me about I have this amazing post thing on the wall. It's like all written out, and it's the word "fuck," which is like I think there's like luck or wealth or something like that. But she actually wrote it down, all the meanings of that, and then she recorded it, the audio of it, what it actually means. And I actually have to see if I did bring that piece of paper down here. If not, I might have to share that with you guys tomorrow. But it is really cool to be able to talk about language, talk about like learning that. I actually saw a video recently of this little girl in her mom's arms, and she was just like crying. And it says like she just watched Mulan, and then she's like, I want to learn Chinese. And then the mom's like, why do you want to learn Chinese so much? She's like, because we're Chinese and I don't know how to speak Chinese, and I want to speak to Papa and Gogum, but I can't. And it's fun, but I can't speak Chinese. It's like such an interesting like moment between this kid and the mom. And like the idea of that is so amazing, of like wanting to like connect to your heritage more, but like there's limitations of it in a certain way, or you're like getting overwhelmed that like don't actually get to experience that. And that was definitely something growing up too. Even like when I was connecting to like Cantonese and speaking it and going to Chinese school every single Saturday, there was like this disconnect to it because there was like this demand of output, I guess. Like it wasn't used or enjoyed to a certain extent because we were spending so much time like training to be better at it or writing it, and that type of energy towards it was like, it made it feel like I wasn't connecting to it as much. Whereas like seeing what this kid who was just like wanting to learn it because it would be so fun, and like they wanted to speak to their grandparents, and like that's so beautiful. And obviously, excuse me, the experience of wanting to like connect to our heritage or like our parents and stuff like that, it is something that is ingrained in us. And even like more often than not, I actually think about the idea of what would it be like if I was to teach my kids. When I have children, am I going to want to teach them Cantonese? And like that isn't for sure for me. Like the beauty of Cantonese and like the way you speak it, it's so interesting too, because you could say something and it actually sounds like very aggressive sometimes, or it's so passionate and intense, and it's like you're not even saying anything that like intense. So it is such like so for me, even just a little bit more about myself in that way, is that like I actually speak Cantonese, and then I speak Canadian English, of course, and then I also speak Canadian French. What is that? Is that rice? I think so. Were you making rice, Mom? I think my mom was making rice or something. It just rang. But yeah, I speak those. That was like such an interesting song for right when I was like, yeah, I speak Chinese, Cantonese and Chinese. And it had like the most Asian song in the background possible. Um, so I speak, and then the French, Canadian French. And so, but if you look at each one of those ones, they are all like the more aggressive of the language. Like Cantonese is like definitely sounds more intense than Mandarin. Mandarin's like considered like the simple language. It's like very like smooth and like sweet in that kind of way or whatever. And then there's like Canadian English or the British English, like compared to British English. it's like more like hardened and much more like less like smooth and like that. And then also French, it's not like France French, which also has that like flow in that way. It's like each one of the languages that I speak are like considered like the more aggressive or intense like ones. And I think that that like has helped shape who I was as well too. It's like finding the like, you know, harder ways in which each person is speaking. It's like that's like very common for me, you know, like when I'm having conversations with sometimes, like it feels like I'm like intensely like connecting to somebody in that way where it's like, you know, being actually more serene and like sweet, and that it's like it doesn't come out in the language as often unless I'm like actually intentionally doing that. But my natural state is definitely more like intense, you know. So it's interesting how language actually affects how it is that we approach life and the way that we view things. I absolutely love it that I'm able to speak these languages. I'm really lucky. Actually, both of the families that I'm working with right now, within the families, I am speaking all three languages, which is so interesting that they both found me. So with the two boys that I'm working with, they speak French as their like first language, English as their second language, and then Cantonese as like the third language. And then the other family, the two girls that I'm working with, they actually speak English as their first language, Cantonese as their second language, and they're pretty good at Cantonese. And then French, they're just like they didn't know much of it, but because I knew it, they were interested in having me help their kids learn French a little bit more. So it is interesting how both families they have differing amounts of it or whatever, but sometimes it's so funny when I speak French with the first family because it's their first language. The little boys are like, ah, Eto, come on, how do you not know that? You know, like I'll be like je suis fini or whatever, and they're like, je suis fini. That means you're dead. You know, like that's act like instead of like j'ai fini or whatever, which is like I am finished, it's like no, the other one means like I'm dead, you know. So they just like will call me out on that, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't even know. And I don't even at first I would get like really offended or emotional that like I wasn't good enough, I guess, in French to my ego, obviously, a 4-year-old kid like calling me out of my language not being strong enough or whatever. But then it's like, no, now I'm like just learning. I'm like, oh, what is it supposed to be? Or like, I'll ask them like, what does this mean? Or this stuff. And so I find that that's like been a lot better in terms of that. Like, they're not like, they obviously like call me out and sometimes like, they'll be like, oh, how did you not know this? But it's like, also I have to accept that like, that's just, it's not my, you know, even my first, like second language, you know, really like, but I do actually would say that I actually write in French, like Cantonese and Chinese, like writing, like I barely have any of those ones. So it is an interesting thing of like, even connecting to it and seeing the language written out and stuff. I like get stressed out because I think about like when I was a kid and like had to like write all this stuff out and like memorize all these things. And so now it's like this, I guess like change of like desiring to connect to my Cantonese roots more, but also like my Chinese heritage and everything, of course, but also the writing of it is like I'm actually very interested in learning more about that. And I love the dialogue of it. I love being able to talk to other people who do speak Cantonese. We have like such interesting conversations. But I always try to practice with my mom as well too. She's like, obviously very adept at it. She like grew up with it and it's first language and stuff. So I am lucky that she is visiting right now and I can like be exposed to it and I can talk a little bit more in it. I always find that the hardest parts of it is like actually expressing emotion, because I think that even people who are experts in it, the actual expression of emotion is not super common in that way, I found, you know, and like unless you're through poetry or through like you know, messages and beauty in that way. So that's something that I did notice, but I am going to continue to pursue that and want to like learn more of that. It is something that I am, I guess it's also like an identity thing as well too, right? There's like this mixed, confusing identity in terms of like looking like a lot of people who are Chinese, but also like like also like feeling differently, and then being Canadian and then being called out for my language not being as great. It's interesting because when I was traveling, people immediately would try to switch to English. and their English was like awful. It was like so bad. And I'm like, you think that your English is better than my Cantonese level? Like that is so disappointing, because like they would not even be able to like say a full sentence, you know, like they would just say keywords. And I was like, oh my God, am I the keyword person? Like, am I just like keywording and then pointing at things? But it is intimidating too when everybody's having like if somebody who was not an English speaker first would listen to me talk, and like I'm just like going on and there's so many words and different things that I'm saying, different expressions, ideas, just fast. You know? So it's like that's what it would feel like if I was talking to someone in Cantonese and then they would just be like, blah, 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 and I was just like, ugh. You know, it would just like get stressful, you know? So it is like everybody just has to come from like a place of patience, and we just gotta like help each other out. You know, it's not easy speaking in multiple languages. The expressions are different. I had this one buddy, Sean Aber, who had the funniest joke about this, about how like when he spoke like in English, like he sounds like educated and he's smart. And like, and he says that like in each language, you know, you sound differently and you come off differently, right? So he's like, yeah, in English, I like sound educated and I like sound very engaged. And in whenever I try to speak Cantonese, I am autistic. That's what he said. And so I always laughed at that, but it was just like, oh my God, like the idea of feeling as if you're just struggling so hard, you know, like, and just the idea of having those challenges of I think that that's something that I'm learning how to like love myself about as well too, you know. And that was a huge part of why I at one point was doing a podcast called Canto Pop. It was just like about pop culture and like doing Cantonese and English on the same time. But I love the idea of some people speaking in English, some people speaking Cantonese, and then everybody understanding each other. That to me is exciting. Like that happens with my mom and myself as well too. Like she'll speak in Cantonese, I'll speak in English, and then it's just like we both understand each other in that way. But what I was actually challenging in the podcast, I was hoping that people who only spoke Cantonese would still understand what was going on, and then people who were just speaking English would understand what was going on. But I have no idea, because sometimes people listen to it and they're like, oh, I still enjoyed it. And I was like, you don't speak any Cantonese. But so I guess it kind of worked in that way. And that's what I hope too for myself. It's like to not be so stressed about it. It's like, I'm just grateful that I grew up with it so that I can speak to the people that are in my life and my family. Like seeing that like video of that little girl crying that she can't talk to her gong gong and papa, like that's just so like powerful to like show me how lucky I was to be able to have those conversations with my grandparents. You know, even though I was like struggling with the language for sure, I would be able to just say like a couple things at a time, or like you know, just answer, I'm doing well, and like how are you, or whatever. But it is still like valuable to honor that and just be like, okay, I just need to keep learning. I need to be patient. And but yeah, I think that that's with anything, because of I think there was a lot of like stress and like trauma from Chinese school, that like whenever I was going to learn it again in my like later, like in my adult life, it was just like this like, oh my God, this is so stressful, I don't want to think about it. But then now it's like, as I've like worked through a lot of these traumas, and it's I think that it's helped me a lot with connecting to my whole self. And like just culture and you know, race is such a huge part of us, you know. Like you can't be a person of color and not like at all like address or experience that, you know. So even in my dating profiles, I actually put like POC, artistic preferred, as like who I'm looking for, because it's like I just feel like, you know, people actually, a lot of the people who have messaged me previously or that I've dated or whatever from like a dating app or whatever, or chatted with, they asked me, they're like, why would you put like POC artistic preferred? Is that like common that people are putting that? And I was like, I've never seen it. I just know myself. And I like, because as someone who has dated like people like of multiple races, well, they were multiple races, but also like people who were also like single races of like multiple time, like in different, you know what I'm saying? So I was able to see like that it was a huge difference. It was like catching somebody up to understand even what it's like to not be white in society was already a huge, like, it took time to get to that point. Whereas somebody who has experienced it is just like, yeah, I know what that's like. I don't need to like discuss that further. Like even just explaining to some like especially white people like that I've dated in Toronto, I was just like, yeah, it was really hard dating in Ottawa because they looked at me like I was like crazy for thinking that I could ever date one of, and a lot of times it was like just talking to, I wasn't even hitting on these people because I knew how Ottawa was. I just wanted to go and talk to them because I was so bored because my friend was just out like hitting on so many different people. I was like, they were the people who were just sitting there and then nobody was talking to them. And I just like wanted to sit and talk to a human being. And it was like uncomfortable because it was like, they thought that I was like gonna like pick them up or whatever. And it was like this super uncomfortable. And I had to explain this to people who were not of like a different race. And like, I was like, yeah, like white people just like treated me so differently, thinking like the idea of dating me, especially like, you know, when I was around this time, it was probably like I was 20 or something, like 15 years ago, how people treated like Asian people, especially as like a partner, as dating. It was like, that's like just wild. Like they didn't have like any like Asian people who were like at all in media that were not looked at as like an action star or like, you know, they were very like, oh, this is a cool, revered thing. But it wasn't like in a way it was like, oh, I want to date them or I want to be with them in that way, you know, like obviously Bruce Lee like busted through that with like being so awesome and stuff. But it was definitely a weird time for sure for dating, for me doing comedy. All that stuff was really challenging because it's like you're breaking down like all these like internalized like racist concepts that were already like, especially in Ottawa, it's like the way that it was boxed in of like what the government was, it was very white. Like even just the way in which it's set up, it's like just this white picket fence like of how it was. So for me to be able to like experience that and then like understand, okay, when I'm dating, like I think that it just works better when I have people who have already experienced something like this or even had moments of uncomfortability because of their race and things like that. And so it's been interesting to have those conversations. Obviously, I lived at hi Christia. I lived at in Nepean, right beside Algonquin College. So that Center Point Park, I lived in Center Point. So that was like my jam. I like spent like probably 10 years just like hanging out in that park, and like anytime I go back, I always visit, and I just love like going to that pond that's there. There's like this like duck family and like geese and all that stuff just chilling, and I just love that like vibe of there. It's very family oriented, you know. So oh cool, nice. Yeah, the downtown 95. That's what we had to take to get downtown to get to the I forgot what the mall, Rideau Center, I guess. Yeah, Rideau Center. Ottawa just feels like a distant memory that I've like sometimes buried it because of like how I felt when I was there. It's like, yeah, it was such an interesting experience growing up there because it definitely didn't feel like I could be my full self, you know. Oh, I love the Byward Market, and I loved there's so many great restaurants down there and stuff too, and the feeling of just like walking through and like right by the water and stuff like that. Yeah, it definitely is a college town, you know. So that's one of the things though. Like I look back to that, and I didn't go to college there. I was there for just like my high school, right? So the way that we operated for sure was like we would go across the border and like go to Hull, and we would go to like the casino that's there. We'd go to the Pig House strip club that was there. Like that was like, it was very like high school vibes of that. And even after I went to college, I'd still visit back with my friends and stuff. But all my friends who live in Ottawa, they all have families now. They have like 2 kids usually. Well, actually, all of them have 2 kids now, pretty much. That was like the dream, right? Oh, we're gonna get married, then we're gonna buy a house, then we're gonna have a kid, then we're gonna like have a couple years, then we're gonna have another kid, then we're gonna live in this big house, work for the government. Like it's like multiple of them. That's the same. Even the people who aren't working for the government, they're working for like one of my buddies, Lyle, my best friend back home. He actually works for LCBO, and he's been there for like almost 10 years, I think now too, right? So it's like, it's all about that pension, all about that like, you know, constant paycheck kind of thing. So for me, it's like, it's interesting because my life has turned out so differently. And obviously I'm super grateful that like I've been able to live the life I have, but sometimes it's hard too, because you think about like what you're leaving behind, and like children is such like a tangibly like, you know that this is like your legacy is being passed on into this other person. Whereas like as an artist, as a creator, it's like what actually is coming from the end, when your end of your life or whatever. So it's an interesting, like, I guess, philosophical, I guess, thought process that I have, or like how it affects my life and the way that I'm living it now. What is it that I want to do before I, like, pass in that way? I'm not saying it's gonna be soon or anything. It just, like, it definitely crosses my mind, especially with the death being a part of, like, my last couple of years. Thinking a lot about my grandfather and, like, his the past of how that happened, as well as my grandmother passing in August. Like, both of those things make me think about, like, the idea of death and the connection to, like, that a lot, and the idea of, like, what we leave behind. And I think that that's not for me, I don't look at it as like, oh, I'm so scared of that or I'm fearful of that. It's like, it's more so like, how can I contribute to the world, like, while I am here? How can I look at the things that I am really actually very great at, and things that I've basically been constantly pushed towards my path? Like, for me, even just like how I got into working with kids, I've actually never talked about this too often with people, but when I first started getting together with kids, hanging out with them and spending time with them, it was at Taekwondo. So I was actually 9 years old when I started doing Taekwondo. When I was about 11 years old, I was probably around, like, blue belt and red belt. So, and I ended up starting to actually work with kids, and training them and doing the warm up, and then doing volunteering in the office while if anybody came in and wanted to, like, register and stuff like that. And then I guess my teacher, my master, at that time, he was really young when he started the school. I think he was 22 when he started the school. And then so at this point, he was only like 24 or 25. And he had this, like, beautiful, like, girlfriend too, and, like, they were just, like, ran the place, and it was both of them were black belts. It was really cool to, like, kind of see their dynamic too. And, like, I think I had crushes on both of them, to be honest. Like, they were just, like, such beautiful people, like, and such, like, incredibly inspiring people, just, like, really would help us focus, become better people, really just improving our lives. And it's like, I honestly think back to that time and I'm like, man, I wish I could do this, like, basically have a school of sorts in this way, where I'm, like, motivating kids and, like, getting them to, like, learn about, like, self-defense, or getting them to learn about, like life skills and things like that through, like, a medium. But I would love to do this with, like, if I was to, like, be honest, if I could do this with, like, pun fu, which I, like, can make up this, like, martial art form of, like, where you're, like, using your shit talking with, like, martial arts, and, like, create this, like, new martial art, like, that idea, that's just, like, a made up dream of mine of some sort. But, like, I love the idea of inspiring kids to, like, be able to mentor each other, support each other, and help each other, and, like, become better people in that way. I do remember back then how impactful it was for me to be surrounded by people who were constantly improving themselves. And, like, the belts actually helped me too, because it gave us goals to work towards. And this always leads to one of the funniest stories of my childhood was, so I was worked for him, my teacher, for multiple years. It was probably 3 or 4 years at this point, where I start, exactly, yes, we would have pun tournaments. For sure, it'd be so good. And obviously it takes so long to create, like, any martial art, but let alone, like, one that's, like, also for jokes as well too. Like, but the beauty of puns is that people always think puns are, like, wordplay jokes and funny, but, like, puns are also used in poetry a lot, and it's also used in they just call it different wording, but, like, they use it in poetry as well as they use it in rap. And it's such an interesting thing seeing this, because I see the value of it. I see the power of it too. Like, and also thinking that wittily, even if you're not saying the puns and stuff, you are thinking way ahead of the people that you're having conversations with a lot of time, which I think is pretty cool. It's like you're on amplified in terms of, like, how much you're paying attention if you are always searching for puns and wordplay and stuff. But yeah, just, like, going back to the Taekwondo stuff, like, so at one point, I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like, we were all ready to become black belts, right? And I was always very, like, humble with that. I wasn't like, I gotta push for it or whatever. But, like, my teacher was like, you are finally, like, ready, as well as my brother. And so both of us we started at the same time. I was 9 at the time. My brother was 12. By this time, he was 16 or 17. And then I was 14, I believe, right? So we ended up doing this test, and the test was intense, right? The test was, you had to know every single pattern from the first day that you were there. So think about it this way. There was 2 patterns when you were white belt. There was 1 pattern when you were yellow stripe. There was 1 pattern when you were yellow belt, green stripe, green belt, blue stripe, blue belt, red stripe, red belt, then black stripe, and then going into black. So there's 11 patterns that you had to like memorize and then do them back to back to back. No mistakes at all, right? You can't have any mistakes in it. And then so you had to do every single one of those ones. You also had to do you had to memorize these 3 step patterns that you had where you walk and do the patterns with another person. So it's kind of like simulating sparring kind of thing. You had to spar with another person, which was like putting on pads and then fighting this other person. Then you had to break boards. So there was like multiple kinds that you had to like break, like hand this way, punch. You had to use your like your foot. You had to kick like 3 or 4 different ways. The hardest one was you had to put your hand like as high as you possibly can, like above your head like this. And then you had to jumping front kick and hit that and break the board. And so like there was so many hard things that you had to do. But the thing that I was the worst at, and my brother was actually really great at, he actually was in track and field and stuff like that. My extent of track and field was just to get out of school. So I remember like an example was when I was in grade 6, I volunteered to do the softball throw because you were too young to do shot put at that point. They didn't have shot put. So nobody wanted to do it because like, why would I throw a softball? That's so stupid. So nobody did it. So then I heard about that. So I found out. So I volunteered and I was the only one who threw it, and I just threw it, and then I just like went and I was like playing Game Gear. And then they were like, yeah, you're the only one who did it, so you could come on the field trip of like the whatever it was. So I went in. I just on the actual day of the track and field thing, they were like, all right, Anto Chan's coming up, whatever. I just like threw it, and then it was like half the distance of like other people. And then the second one I knew was so bad, so I just threw it backwards. I didn't even care. And then they like fault or whatever. And then I just went and I played Game Gear for like 6 hours. It was like I was like, I was so happy, right? Like I was like, oh, I can't believe I got out of school. And then in grade 8, this is the second time I did this same scam. Nobody wanted to run the 400 meters. So I was always coming up with scams to skip school. So I ended up volunteering to do the 400 meters in the relay races. And then I ended up being the only one who wanted to run it. And then so I got to miss school again, and I did the same thing. I like the whole day, I just like hung out until like my thing. And I was like winning. I was like, it was like 200 meters in, I was winning. And then everybody passed me because I didn't realize that I was going to get so tired. I was like, why? I could just sprint it the whole way. Because my brother told me that. He's like, I run the 800 and I just sprint it as the whole time. And I was like, really? That seems like a long way to sprint. And he's like, just don't let yourself think about that you're tired at all. Your body won't know. Just keep going. And I was like, all right, that's great advice. But like, he's been working on his body to do that. So I hated running and I didn't like all that stuff. So during this Taekwondo test, one of the things was you had to run around the entire center points, which was in Ottawa. And I don't even know how many kilometers it was. I think it was like 5K or something like that. It wasn't like too crazy. It was probably supposed to be like 25 to 40 like minutes or something, or like 20 to 40 minutes or something like that. So what ends up happening though is we all leave at the same time and we're all running or whatever, and we're doing really well. And I don't know what it was, but I just started getting this crazy pain in my stomach. And then I ended up needing to take like a huge dump, like really badly. And I feeling so sick when I was running, and then everybody started getting way in front of me. So I was like, oh my God, like feeling so sick. And then I ended up like finding like it was like a walk-in clinic or whatever too. So I like went and I was like, can I please use your washroom, whatever. And I couldn't get up from the washroom for like 15 minutes. So just imagine that. That's like almost the entire time that it took people to run the whole like 5K or whatever. We're supposed to be athletes, right? This is what we're supposed to be doing. So I'm like sweating and I was like, oh my God, and I couldn't stop thinking about this. But the craziest part of this was that the way that the test was set up, that the amount of time that you spend on your run, the rest of the time you're going to get to do your written test, right? So that was crazy. So the whole thing between the running and the written test was 1 hour. Right? So I did the whole thing and then I had to stop and then I had to continue the rest of the way. So by the time that I got back there, it was 45 minutes. so my brother and when I walked in, I saw my brother's face being like, "Yo, where the hell were you, man? Like, we've been here for like everybody else was done already, and I was just like sweating." And they were like, "Yo, this guy's so out of shape." Little did they know that I spent like 20 minutes taking a huge dump, right? And then so I get in there, and I was just like, and I don't know where this came from, but I was like, I know that I can do this. Like, I just was like, I was like panicking, obviously, right when I walked in, I was sweating, whatever. But something clicked in me, and I was like, no, I can do this written test. I'm excellent at like writing, and I studied and all that kind of stuff. So I felt like smoke was coming from the page. I was like, yes, I could do this, you know. And I finally like, you know, when I actually like finished it, and the test was actually super intense too, because there was my master's like best friend / his master, right? So my master, it's so weird calling people master at this time, but I mean, like, that's what we called them, right? So in Taekwondo, that like there was he was just like my teacher, and it was amazing to like have his teacher basically come in, and so my teacher was still competing, but his teacher was like, you know, his peer, but also like would mentor him and that kind of stuff. And he was in and watching all this stuff. And it was so cool to be able to like have him speak to us about like, okay, these are the things you can improve on. This is the stuff like that you did really well. And then it's like, congratulations, like you got your black belt. And it was so epic, feeling like, holy crap. Like it felt like, because I started when I was 9, and then when I got this, I was like 14 or something like that, right? So it was like 5 years out of like more than like a third of my life, I had just been dedicating to being better at Taekwondo, right? So it was just so powerful. I was like, yes, this is like amazing. I had my black belt, and I don't know like if I showed it off or anything like that, but I feel like I should have, you know. So it was really cool to have that experience. I learned a lot from it too. It showed me like, you know, certain things I might be better at, certain things I might not be better at. Also, preparation is so important, because maybe I should have taken a dump before the test and stuff like that. But the experience of it was just so great. And like, that's what I always think about that. I'm like, yo, that time was so like awesome for me to like learn and stuff. So sometimes when I go work with the kids, I do think about like the idea of like what that relationship was like, and like how my teacher was really like positive for me as like a male role model. And it was really great to be able to think that like I can do this for other people. So even like that, like when I was going into when I was like 17 and going into like college and stuff like that, when I was like trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to actually do, I applied to like 6 different schools, and 5 of them were psychology, but 1 of them was early childhood education. And then I got into like multiple of the psychology ones, because I did that. Like I was telling you, I do a lot of like schemes or scamming and that kind of stuff when I was younger. I was 17. I was like, this is the only year I need to be really good in school. So the first term, so there's 2 terms, right? So the first term, I ended up like trying so hard, doing every single thing, doing crazy. So I had like an 84 average, right? And then by the end of the year, what I realized, I could just slack off the whole rest of the year and then still end up balancing. So I had to get like 60 to even get it, because like you had to get over 70 after you got accepted or whatever. So I was super nervous, because I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna fail some of these classes or whatever. So I had to keep trying. I got 68 in a lot of those classes or whatever. And then so I had to get over 70. I ended up ending up with a 71. So it's like all of these things that I do now, I'm like, yo, these were very detrimental to like my overall, like, but they worked at the time. Maybe that's why I kept thinking I could beat the system, you know? So sometimes I still have that rebellion in me, you know, the idea of doing that and thinking that I can like trick the system into like working in my advantage. And I think that that's something that I'm working through, you know, like that's like definitely a child thing, you know, where I would try and trick the situation and then not actually like acknowledge how much I needed to really work. And that's something that I'm hoping for in the new year as well too. A lot of the things that I've been reading about or whatever, it's like it's saying a lot of stuff is about actually putting in the work that you say that you need to be doing, and not just saying it and not just tricking people into thinking that you are doing that work, right? So that's something that is really resonating with me right now. It's not about this surface idea of like what everybody thinks that you're doing or the hustle that you think other people think. It's really like taking the time and the energy on my own to like do the work that I very much necessarily need to be doing. Okay, so some of my favorite segments right now. So I actually randomly found the book that I wrote. Yes, effort matches intention. That is very true. And it's so important for us to take the time and the energy and the effort to put it into pairing it with that intention, because then when you actually are able to have the execution of what it is, everybody feels it from all the different layers. If someone sees effort more, or if someone sees intention more, whichever one impacts them, they see that you're there fully. You're really giving yourself to that. And I think there's a lot of power to that, you know? So, okay. So there you go. I found the book that I actually did a lot of my National Poetry Month stuff in. And so I'm actually going to read right from the book. So we'll see. Okay. Okay, here we go. So this is from the 21st day of National Poetry Month. I don't know if you guys wanted to check out kind of like the way that I write. I think everything's backwards though, so you can't really see that. But it was really nice to be able to write these out and feeling connected to like actual like the physical sense of that, not just typing it all out on my computer. So I have troubles acknowledging all I do, as it adds to my stagnancy. Thinking I have to keep looking ahead. What's the next step? Progression only. There is no time for reflection. I get overwhelmed sometimes with the many goals I have. Just do it. Check it off the laundry list, getting washed away. I start beginning again, in process, challenges finding ending. So many possibilities, where to spend my time. Day pass by so fast. I blink, I stink, I think, I drink, I wink, push to the brink. I'm here writing again, resting my head, awaken in darkness, wishing windows. The sunlight so bright, missing tonight. Even the moon film illuminates noir skies. Holding space, distance erase. I welcome sharing as we zoom around. Having house parties from our phones just isn't the same game. Simulation of stimulation. Now I'm digging deeper. Investigation of instigation. Finding what I truly want. What will be the first thing I do when I'm out? Watching enough Innocence Files, projection of our desires, the instant that we're free. I cannot imagine what prisoners experience, how they coped, especially in solitary, more than mindset game. There is no comparison. At what point where watching somehow equals doing, perspective shifting, working through this. I am confronted as I'm comforted. The push and pull, back and forth, action, reaction, dizzying spell, spinning out, twister, truck in eye of storm. Flying cow mooing in the middle of distress. Must learn to de-stress. Calming customs. Lush, loving lullabies. Tomorrow comes soon. Knowing there's work that needs to be done. Hocus pocus. Focus. Magical magnificence. Confidence in self-worth. Contributions influencing Earth. This planet needs art, and I continue to create, bountifully, fulfilling, originally, organically, and I asked for help. The world's answered my call. In the end, it will benefit us all, as long as the intentions align with intentions. And as long as the inventions align with intentions. Yo, Christia, you said effort matches intention in the last line, the word of this, as long as the inventions align with intentions. Yo, that shit's like crazy. I'm telling you, man, every time that it's supposed to, like, I wonder if it's going to match or whatever. Even the name of this one was about the sun moon reflection. There's a reference to the sun and the moon in here as well, too. Right here, tonight, the sunlight's so bright, missing tonight, even the moon film illuminates noir skies. So yes, it's like, it's amazing to be able to see how so many of these days, yes, serendipity consistently. That's what it's all about in this way. You know, I'm so grateful for these streams because I'm able to consistently like feel, whoa, I can't believe that happened. Oh, it's like so funny because even after all these years of like this type of like, even though it's minimal, sometimes people would say like a manifestation that way, it's like, it's so exciting, you know, it still feels like that first time when you open a gift and you're like, this is what I've been asking for months. Oh my God. You know, it's like this feeling of power in that way. So, and there's another thing here that was interesting, the idea of the projection of our desires, the instant that we're free, you know, like the idea of like, you know, the weight of feeling trapped or feeling like as if we can't do anything in that way. And it's like, I think that there's a lot that goes into saying that like, we just have to be so conscious in these moments. Like if we're going through something, to be able to express it or share it with the people around us or connecting in that way, I think it's so valuable for us to like grow and learn inside of that, you know? So, and the way that this has started was, I have trouble acknowledging all I do as it adds to my stagnancy, thinking I have to keep looking ahead. What's the next step? Progression only. So there's like this obsession with progression, you know, like there's just like constant push to be like, I gotta keep progressing. I gotta keep getting better. I gotta keep being smarter. But it's like, in reality, so much of this comes back down to like, we've done so much already. We just need time to reflect on what we have done. And that's why working through traumas and working through like our past and stuff is so valuable, because it's kind of like, you know, going through like the dead roots of our hair, like, sorry, the dead ends of our hair and stuff like that. And then like connecting to like the roots and like making sure that we're getting enough like coconut oil on like our scalp and like things like that, you know, taking care of like so many parts of like our hair. And I actually do have this like connection to how hair is very similar to like each like strand is like one of our stories, you know, and when one of them gets like pulled out, it's kind of like, you know, we're forgetting about that story, and that like is gone from our lives, and that's us shedding some of these things that that just isn't helping us anymore. That's not a part of us anymore, and that's okay as well too, you know. So one of the things that someone said, they're like, yo, you shed so much, you should just like put it into a wig, and then all the shed hair can be a wig for you when you go bald. So, which I know is going to happen. I've said this before. I know, and it might be just me manifesting it, but it's because I've bragged about my hair so much, and I've like been on stage and I like take down my hair, and I like just like people like put their hands on it. They just love it so much, and it's like I flaunt it so much. It's like I know that at one point I'm going to end up being bald, and then I'm going to have to deal with that as well too. And people always ask the same question, being like, oh, like, what's it like not having hair now because you used to have so much of it or whatever. It's the same as like when I was with someone for 4 years, and then when I would see someone I haven't seen for a while, they're like, oh, where's this partner? And then I'm like, oh yeah, we broke up. They're like, oh, I thought you guys were gonna get married. You know, it's like the same with that, with like what I feel like is gonna happen with my hair, you know, at some point. So okay, so next segment, one of my favorites. As you guys know, this is one of my favorite segments, the From Popo's Closet. Yes, this is pretty nice. So this is like a skirt. It's a little bit, obviously it's a little bit wrinkly, but it is a wool nylon skirt, dry clean only, so it's fancy. And it's a 12. Anybody a 12 out there? It's so funny because I know I'm not fancy because I say, wow, fancy. Like anytime that anybody says fancy, they're not fancy, you know? So I remember going to an event with my friend, and I like walked in, and I was like, yo, it's really fancy in here. And he like hit me, and he's like, yo, what the hell? Don't embarrass me. You know? So he embarrassed me because I was feeling cool. This is an athletic sweater. This is just a decent sweater. Looks like good quality. This is a medium. Anybody can wear that one. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's see. We got this. Oh, I never was able to really wear these sweaters. This is a medium. Anybody want to have a medium vest? Okay, this is pretty good. It's beige. Pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Okay. Wow, got a lot of skirts here. The skirt section. There's another skirt. Skirt. I literally don't even know what skirt means. I've just heard it so much. What does skirt even mean? Okay, this is a 16. Anybody want a size 16? I don't even know what size I would be. Is it the same for like dudes if like I was like a 38 or something like that? Would it? No, it wouldn't be. That wouldn't be actually. Now that I think of that. Because that's like pants. Yo, tights. Anybody need some green tights? Green tights. All right, I'm gonna do two more. Two more random pickings. Maybe I should go through this before so you guys don't have to sit through me trying to figure out which ones are good as well. That'll be something. I've been doing this for so long, and I still acrylic fox sweater, and it is you can't really see it, but it is maroon. Very nice maroon. And then this one is beautiful actually. So it is diamond knits, nylon texture. I don't know what it is, but it looks pretty cool. So I think it goes this way. It is a blue. This is a blue. You can't really see it, so it's blue. That's really nice. Okay. And then imagine I get really into fashion after this. That would be such a cool story. Yeah, I just started going through my grandma's clothing randomly, and I just started getting really into old school fashion. And this is a beautiful maroon. I feel like I'm on the shopping channel. That's what this is. Palermo. That's what that one's called. Okay, and our final one looks like a sweater that I think somebody knitted. I think this one. I think I have to put it on. That's what's calling out to me right now. Got to put on this. It's gonna be even better because I'm sleeveless. This looks like a sweater that my aunts would like make for. Wearing it without like any, that just looks ridiculous to me. But it is pretty warm. Okay, cool. So before I get out of here, obviously I love to make sure that I do my pun segment as well too. But that has been from Papa's Closet. That's what that was. And so our final thing before I get out of here, it is my wonderful Punfucius says. So let's get into this. Let's do this. Punfucius say, stink up my washroom. That's not polite. Okay, that's pretty good. The bug's least favorite sport is squash. Yeah, I like that one. Insects tell time by listening to the TikTok. Well, that's pretty good. Also, TikTok can now be somehow used with TikTok. Okay, cool. Writing a fiction book. That's a novel idea. I don't know why I always put on that voice when I'm reading puns. I want to somehow emphasize each word. Open the door to beautiful weather as spring equinox. Equinox. Okay. That one was painful because I like tried to explain it while I was saying it. The most educated cheese studies at Harvardy. That's so bad. Oh, the most educated cheese studies at Harvard. Okay, I don't know which one sounds better, but both of them are struggles. Okay, fossil movie director is Ammonite Shyamalan. Shyamalan. Okay, that was not good. To go against the grain, say whatever. I like that one. Okay, to weigh a reptile, they have scales. That's pretty good. The rabbit's favorite pancake place is IHOP. Okay, this is the last one. Two more. Boston's song for cats is more than a feline. More than a feline. Yeah, that's the way I had to deliver that. Okay. The sponge says to the soap, I'll see you sooner or lather. Oh, that one's so bad that I have to end with that one. Oh man, I love it. Okay, so that has been another edition of Vlogmas. These fly by so fast these days, you know. It just feels so great to be able to, talk about the things that I think about during the day. I will have to get back to you tomorrow about those wonderful quotes from this beautiful picture that my mom had showed me. I'll bring it tomorrow, and I'll explain. There's 4 different sayings on it. All of them have to do with wealth / beauty or whatever. So I'll figure it out for you guys tomorrow, and I'll talk to her about it. And I have a recording of her doing an audio. I love my mom's audio things. She always when I was hosting weddings, she would always message me different so I always had to introduce the family members. I'd say their name, and then I'd immediately go and explain what in Chinese, it's in Cantonese, it's really hard because it's so specific. It's like your uncle's wife is actually this specific thing, whereas your uncle on the other side's wife or kids would be that, it's very particular of what you call a specific person. So my mom would record it in audio, and then I would listen to them, and I would just giggle because it's so beautiful to just hear her still teaching me and helping me with my Chinese after all of these years. And it's been a really much more positive experience, I would say, in comparison to the intensity of Chinese school from a kid, right? So I'm glad that things have evolved. I'm really grateful for that. And speaking about language and stuff, just knowing that I've come so far and want to learn that and want to connect to this. And even right now, excited to share this stuff with you for tomorrow. So thank you so much for coming out and listening, Chrissy, especially every day you've been there. Appreciate that. It's been awesome to be able to continue to grow alongside with you guys. And each day I feel like I'm learning something more about myself and like how it is I want to express what it is. I feel like by the end of this, I'm going to know exactly the direction in which maybe not exactly, but the direction that I am wanting to head in my life. I think that a lot will be resolved in that way. Or at least I'm looking forward to that. But like I said in the writing today, it's like I can't be obsessed with that progress. I have to be like just grateful for where it is that I am right now, and just being able to share my process with you guys, it just means everything to me, you know? So yes, it's gonna be such a good Christmas gift. Oh, what do I want? I don't know. We'll talk about Christmas gifts later. Or is it gonna be my Christmas gift is what you're saying. But yes, in general, I think that it's very valuable to be able to reflect this way. And for me also, even right away, me doing these every day, I'm looking at the quality of the video. I'm like, yo, I need to get a webcam. I'm like, yes, I'm gonna get a webcam. That's what I need. So that's a great gift for myself in that way too. So I am like purchasing that. I'm actually after this. So yes, the release of my thoughts is such a gift as well, for sure. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to end this now. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to tomorrow. So 11:30 every single night. Okay. Until the 25th. Okay. Bye.